Hey everyone, and welcome to the show. It's always a bit unsettling when we dive into stories where you see how trauma can really warp someone's view of the world, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and it can push them to do things that you can't even imagine.
Really unthinkable acts, yeah.
Exactly. And then for those who survive those horrific events,
Right.
it's a whole other struggle, a whole other battle to piece together your life.
Oh, absolutely. To find some sense of healing, some sense of justice.
Hmm?
It's a long road.
Yeah, so today we're looking into all of that.
Yeah, definitely.
We're taking a deep dive into The Dollmaster
Ooh.
by Sarah Ennis. This is a psychological thriller. So
Oh, good one.
if you like to get chills down your spine, this is the book for you.
I do love a good thriller.
And if you want to pick up a copy, we'll have a link down in the description.
Awesome.
But just to give you a little taste without giving too much away,
Right.
this book picks up 3 years after some truly awful crimes happened
Okay.
in a place that's come to be known as the Dollhouse.
Ooh, that's ominous.
Yeah, it's a pretty heavy story. It deals with themes of justice, revenge,
Of course.
and how the past just keeps hanging over everyone involved.
Yeah, it's never really over, is it?
No, it's not just the survivors either.
That's true.
It affects the accused, too.
Absolutely everyone caught in that web.
So before we get too far into this deep dive,
Right.
make sure you hit that like button
Yes, please.
and subscribe to the channels if you haven't already.
And the little bell icon.
Yes, the bell, too.
So you get notified.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, you've given us excerpts directly from the Dollmaster,
I have, yes.
and our mission today
Our mission, should we choose to accept it?
is to understand the trial of Alfred Stanhope.
Okay.
He's the man accused of the Dollhouse crimes,
Right.
and to see how all this is impacting the survivors, particularly Angel Evanston.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, so the trial of Alfred Stanhope is underway.
Okay.
And right from the start, you can tell the courtroom is just full of anticipation,
Oh, I bet.
dread even.
Understandably.
This is the man accused of the most horrible things.
Like, what kind of things are we talking about?
Kidnapping, torturing, and murdering children.
Oh, my goodness.
All within this place he called the Dollhouse.
It's giving me chills already.
And right away, you see these two totally different stories being told.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, like, conflicting narratives?
Yeah, the prosecution, they're not holding back.
Okay.
They're led by Deputy District Attorney Hannah Mills.
Okay.
And she calls Stanhope the embodiment of calculated human evil.
Wow, strong words.
Their opening statement, they go right into the awful details.
Like, what kind of details?
We talk about how Angel was forced to hurt her own twin brother, Bud,
Oh, that's awful.
and how Bud's death was ritualistic.
So they're not pulling any punches. They want to paint a very specific picture of this guy.
Exactly. They want the jury to see just how depraved these crimes were.
I can see why they would do that. But what about the defense? What's their approach?
Well, they're coming at it from a completely different angle.
Really?
They're saying Stanhope isn't some cold-blooded monster.
Are
They're
you-
saying he's this deeply troubled person struggling with something called dissociative identity disorder.
So for those of us who might not be familiar with that, can you explain what it is?
Sure. So D-Day is a really complex condition
Okay.
where someone develops multiple separate identities or personalities.
Oh, wow. So it's like multiple people in one mind.
Kind of. So Stanhope's attorney, Meredith Perez,
Okay.
she's arguing that trauma, when he was a child, literally fractured his psyche.
Okay.
And that's what created these alternate identities.
So who are these identities?
Well, there's Jennifer,
Okay.
who Stanhope described as dominant and controlling.
Okay, so a powerful personality.
And then there's Edward,
All right.
who apparently has this very strict moral code.
Interesting. So how does that play into their defense?
Well, their whole argument hinges on these alters acting on their own.
Oh,
They're saying Stanhope's main personality was just a passenger in his own mind.
wow. So he had no idea what was going on.
That's what they're claiming.
So are they going to bring in experts to back this up?
Oh, yeah. They've promised to bring in psychiatric experts.
Okay.
And evidence of memory blackouts, too.
So they're really going to try to prove that
Yeah.
he was not in control of his actions.
Exactly. And it raises this huge question of, can he even be held responsible?
That's a big question for the jury to grapple with, for sure.
Right in the middle of all this is Angel Evanston,
Okay.
one of the Dollhouse survivors.
Right.
The book tells us it's been 3 years since those horrific events.
Okay.
And Angel's 17 now.
So she's still so young?
She's described as older, stronger, but also really angry.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It seems like she's dealing with so much.
Trauma, grief, probably a thirst for justice, maybe even revenge. It's a lot to carry.
Absolutely. And there's this note from the author.
Oh, what does it say?
It says Angel actually met a woman named CB in a previous book
Oh, really?
called The Hunted, Sins of the Father.
Interesting. So is that necessary reading to understand the Dollmaster?
Not really, but knowing about CB
Right.
gives us this sense that Angel has some support.
Yeah, someone in her corner.
Someone who won't let her just bury her trauma.
That's so important to have that kind of support.
For sure.
So what's going on with Angel now leading up to the trial?
We get these really powerful glimpses into her thoughts
Okay.
as she's thinking about Alfred's trial and his whole defense strategy.
The whole DD thing.
Yeah, you can practically feel her exhaustion.
Yeah, I bet.
And maybe even a little cynicism.
Understandably, it must be so frustrating to have to go through all of this.
Exactly. And it really shows how survivors can be re-traumatized by the legal system.
Oh, absolutely. It's like having to relive everything all over again.
There's this one scene in a diner
Okay.
where someone recognizes Angel,
Oh gosh, even after 3 years,
even after all that time.
the dollhouse still haunts her.
Yeah, and her first instinct is just to avoid the attention.
Of course, who wants to be known for something so horrific?
It really shows how much she wants to move on.
To just be a normal teenager.
But it seems like the world won't let her forget.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
And right after that, we see CD's perspective.
Okay.
She tells Angel straight up that she can't keep running.
Wow, she's not letting it off the hook.
Nope. CB's basically saying that healing means facing what happened.
That's a tough but important message.
And it seems like CB is always there to remind Angel of that.
He's like a rock for her.
Definitely too. Then we see Angel in therapy.
Okay, with Dr. Lisa, right?
Yeah, right before the trial starts.
And how's that going?
Well, even in therapy.
You'd think that would be a safe space
You would think.
to open up.
But she doesn't want to talk about the trial
Oh, wow.
or her past.
So she's still really closed off,
Yeah, it's like she's built this wall around herself.
trying to keep all those painful memories locked away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But even though she's being quiet,
Right.
you can tell the trial is weighing on
I
her.
bet it's like this huge dark cloud hanging over her.
She says at one point, I just want it to be over.
Oh, that's so sad. It speaks volumes, doesn't it?
It really does. It shows just how exhausted she is.
Yeah, and how much this trauma still affects her.
So now let's shift gears a bit
Okay.
and try to understand Alfred's perspective before the trial.
Okay, this should be interesting.
It's really unsettling to read.
I can imagine.
He sees the psychiatrists, the lawyers, everyone trying to understand him
Right.
as trying to like simplify his life into these neat little boxes.
Oh, so he thinks they're reducing him to something he's not.
Exactly. But he sees his own life as this huge labyrinth.
Like a maze.
Right. And that right there
Why?
is a huge red flag about how manipulative he is.
How so?
By saying his life is this puzzle no one can solve.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
It's like he's trying to avoid responsibility.
Yeah, like he's too complex for anyone to judge him.
Exactly. And it also suggests he might not really feel empathy.
Oh, like he can't understand the pain he's caused.
Or maybe he just doesn't care.
Wow, that's a chilling thought.
We then see him in sessions with Dr. Pierce.
Right, the psychiatrist hired by his defense team.
And it's clear he's being really careful about what he tells her.
Oh, so he's controlling the narrative.
It brings up his relationship with his sister Felicity
Okay.
and talks about his difficult childhood.
What was his childhood like?
He mentions being bullied, the impact of his mom's alcoholism,
Oh, wow, so he's playing up the trauma angle.
and her death, too.
Okay, so he's giving Dr. Pierce specific information that fits with their defense strategy.
Right. He's feeding her these details that paint him as a victim.
I see. But is he leaving anything out?
Oh, definitely. He's leaving out or downplaying key parts of the truth.
So he's manipulating her.
Oh, absolutely. For example, he talks about being called names at school
Okay, that's definitely bullying.
and how he coped by creating these worlds in his mind.
Okay.
But then he says the cruelty became physical.
So he's slowly building up the severity of the trauma.
Yeah, like he's laying the groundwork for the DID diagnosis.
It's all very calculated, isn't it?
Very much so. And then he talks about this one specific incident
What happened?
where he was forced to wear a dress
Oh my goodness.
and humiliated publicly.
That's awful, especially for a child.
And he says he remembers a voice saying,
What did it say?
"Wonder if this is what Felicity meant when she told us to fuck him up."
Wow. So he's directly connecting his abuse to his sister.
Yeah, and it's a moment that really seems to support the defense's argument.
About the origins of his trauma and his alters.
Right. But later on,
What?
we find out that the truth about Felicity is very different
No, really?
from what Alfred's been saying.
So he's not being truthful.
Nope, he's planting these seeds in Dr. Pierce's mind.
To lead her to the conclusion he wants.
Exactly. He wants her to validate his insanity plea.
While hiding the real truth.
And it becomes more and more obvious that he's manipulating her.
He's using his intelligence to game the system.
He's telling this story about Felicity controlling him.
Right.
And how Jennifer, his alter, emerged because of that.
But he's leaving out important details.
He's crafting this narrative for her.
But it's not the whole story.
It's like he's using her to get what he wants.
It's really disturbing how much control he still seems to have.
And we even see his thoughts, where he's like, prison can't hold me.
Oh, wow. He's that confident.
Yeah, he truly believes he's smarter than everyone else.
And that he can use his money and influence to get away with it.
He sees this whole trial as just a problem to solve.
And that he has the answer.
It's astonishing how arrogant he is.
Yeah, it's actually pretty chilling to see that level of confidence from someone accused of such horrific crimes.
So then the trial moves on to witness testimonies.
Okay.
And the first one we hear about is Nick Winston.
Oh, okay.
He's the FBI agent who was key in catching Alfred.
So he was the lead investigator?
Yeah, and his testimony gives us the prosecution's perspective on the arrest.
What was Alfred like when they caught him?
Winston says at first he was calm,
Really?
almost mocking.
Like he was amused by the whole thing.
But then when they told him about the house fire,
Okay.
he reacted.
Interesting, like that was his weak spot.
Or maybe it was just another act.
To try and manipulate the situation.
It's hard to say.
So what else did Winston talk about?
He described finding the surviving children, Grace Angel and Olivia,
Okay.
and confirming Bud's death.
That's so sad. It's a reminder of the real human cost of Alfred's actions.
And what really stands out in his testimony
What's that?
is how he talks about staying with Angel while she recovered.
Oh, wow. So he really got to know her.
He talks about her strength and resilience,
After losing Bud and her mother,
and it really brings home the impact of Alfred's crimes.
it puts a human face on the tragedy.
But of course, the defense attorney, Meredith Perez,
Yeah, she's not going to just let that stand.
she cross-examines Winston
Of course.
and really focuses on his communication with Peter Baden,
Who's Peter Baden again?
Olivia's father.
Right, right.
And she also points out his close bond with Angel.
So she's trying to suggest he might be biased.
Exactly. She's trying to plant that seed of doubt in the jury's minds.
It's a classic tactic to try and discredit the prosecution's witnesses.
Then Olivia Baden takes a stand.
Okay, another survivor.
And she's described as calm and composed.
Wow, even after everything she's been through.
But Alfred, in his thoughts,
What does he think?
he calls her a human doll.
Oh my God.
Beautiful, but empty and emotionless.
That's so creepy and dehumanizing.
It shows how distorted his perception is.
Absolutely. He can't see her strength and resilience.
Her testimony is really powerful.
What does she talk about?
She describes being kidnapped and held in the locked basement.
Dollhouse.
And she talks about their fear
Yeah.
when they found out Alfred wanted to take Grace.
Oh, gosh. So they knew he was planning to abduct another child?
And it shows how terrified they were all the time.
Living in constant fear.
But they also came up with this brilliant plan.
What did they do?
They swapped a home movie for a DVD with a message for help.
Oh, wow. That's so clever.
It shows how resourceful they were, even in that awful situation.
They were determined to survive.
Olivia also describes Alfred's punishments,
Okay.
how they got worse over time.
So he was escalating the abuse.
And she talks about these proxy punishments,
What are those?
where Angel was forced to hurt the others,
Oh my God, that's horrific.
especially with the threat of Bud being hurt if she didn't.
So he was using her love for her brother against her.
And it shows just how twisted Alfred's control was.
Absolutely. It's psychological torture.
Olivia makes this really powerful statement.
What does she say?
She says, living in Alfred's dollhouse was a nightmare. But what Alfred did to Angel broke all of us. He didn't just force us to watch her suffer. He made us part of it.
Oh, that's so powerful and heartbreaking.
It shows the lasting trauma they all experienced.
And how Alfred intentionally broke their bonds.
Then, in a key moment,
What happens?
Olivia identifies Alfred in court as Bud's killer.
Wow, that's huge for the prosecution.
It directly links him to the murder.
There's no ambiguity there.
We also see what Angel's going through while Olivia's testifying.
Okay, so we're back in her head.
Yeah, just being in the same room as Alfred again
Oh, I can imagine that's incredibly difficult.
triggers this huge reaction in her.
Like a panic attack.
It shows how deeply the trauma still affects her.
Even after all this time.
Olivia explains why Angel couldn't ask for help.
Right, because of Bud?
Bud was the timer.
Oh, right.
Alfred would hurt him if Angel didn't do what he said.
Within 30 minutes?
It's terrifying to think about.
He was controlling her through fear for her brother.
And we see Angel flash back to the sound of the table saw.
The one Alfred threatened Bud with.
The terror she must have felt.
That's unimaginable.
Olivia then describes this other incident
Okay.
where Alfred made Angel wear a pink satin dress and tiara,
A tiara.
like to make her look like Felicity.
His sister.
And then he tore the dress.
That's so disturbing.
It shows his obsession with Felicity.
And how he was using Angel as a substitute.
But this memory
About it.
is also connected to how they got the DVD out.
Really?
They used the torn dress to hide it.
Oh, wow. So even in that awful moment, they found a way to fight back.
It's amazing how resilient they were.
Definitely.
And then Angel has this realization.
What is...
She looks at Alfred in the courtroom,
Yeah.
and he seems small, pathetic gray.
Not the monster she remembers.
It's a huge shift in how she sees him.
It's like she's starting to take back her power.
And then Peter Baden takes a stand.
Olivia's father.
He's described as having this commanding presence.
He's a celebrity, right?
And a hero in this story.
So his testimony carries a lot of weight.
He talks about how hard he worked to find Olivia.
Using all his resources.
He really emphasizes how dedicated he was.
It's a contrast to Alfred's actions.
Peter also introduces Komorebi.
What's that?
It's his online platform for families of missing people and survivors.
Oh, it's amazing.
But Alfred, in his thoughts,
What does he think?
he suggests that Peter might be using it to control the survivor community.
Oh, so, like, he's not doing it entirely out of altruism.
It raises questions about his motives.
It's interesting how Alfred always sees the worst in people.
We then hear from Mrs. Hamilton.
Who's she?
She used to run a daycare,
Okay.
and she remembers a fire in her backyard. And children seeing a man with dark, poofy hair in orange coveralls.
Interesting.
She thinks the fire was a distraction so someone could take Grace.
So it was all planned out.
And it reinforces the idea that the abductions were carefully coordinated.
It definitely suggests there was more than one person involved.
So moving on to the defense's overall strategy.
Okay.
Meredith Perez is clearly going for the insanity plea.
Right.
She's using the M'Naghten rule.
And the irresistible impulse test.
They're trying to show that Alfred either didn't understand what he was doing
Because of his mental state?
or that he couldn't control himself.
So they're trying to remove his criminal responsibility.
Exactly. But then the prosecution throws a curveball.
Oh, what happened?
Sarah Miller takes the stand.
Who's that?
She's a family acquaintance,
Okay.
and she testifies that Felicity Stanhope died when she was 10,
Alfred's sister.
which means Alfred couldn't have been abused by her for years like he claimed.
Oh, wow. That completely undermines his story.
Dr. Pierce tries to explain it away by saying Alfred's memories are distorted because of trauma.
But that seems like a weak excuse.
Especially after Sarah Miller's testimony.
It makes you question everything Alfred said.
And then Nyla Washington testifies.
Who's she?
She knew Alfred as a school counselor,
Okay.
and she describes him as meticulous, well-liked by students.
Not exactly the unstable multiple personality the defense is describing.
Not at all, and it raises even more doubts about his insanity plea.
It suggests he was in control of his actions.
Alfred's internal reaction to Sarah Miller's testimony is really telling.
What does he say?
He realizes that the Felicity he remembers
The one who supposedly abused him.
never really existed the way he thought.
Wow, so he's been living a lie.
And then he thinks, so who did I kill? Of course, the answer is obvious. I killed versions of her.
Oh, that's chilling. It's like he's admitting his victims were just stand-ins for his sister.
And it shows how detached he is from reality.
It's like he's living in his own world.
Then we get to the closing argument.
Okay, the final showdown.
The prosecution goes hard on Alfred's cruelty,
And the defense focuses on his mental state.
and we see little glimpses of the jurors' reactions.
It must be so hard for them to process all of this.
The judge gives them the standard instructions.
To only consider the evidence and the law.
But in a case like this, it must be incredibly difficult to be objective.
With all the emotion involved.
Then there's this seemingly minor interruption.
What happens?
Alfred says he needs to use the restroom.
While the jury's deliberating.
Seems like no big deal.
But of course it's not.
This is the start of his escape.
Wow, he's planned this all along.
He had arranged to switch places with someone named Kit.
Who's Kit?
They were disguised as an elderly woman.
Really?
They had a gray cardigan, a knee-length skirt, a bad wig.
Almost comical.
We also learned that Kit had recently cut their hair
Okay.
and had a bruise that matched one on Alfred.
So they were prepared.
And to make things even easier,
Yeah.
they used this foul-smelling gel to keep the guards away.
Oh, yuck. That's smart, though.
So Kit takes Alfred's place.
Okay.
And Alfred, disguised as the old lady, walks right out.
He just blends in with the crowd.
It's a pretty bold escape.
And it shows how much security underestimated him.
But then Angel sees him.
Really?
He recognizes him in the hallway by the elevator.
Even in that disguise.
He just knows it's him.
Wow, that's incredible.
And she confronts him.
What does she say?
She uses everything she knows about his mind,
Okay.
about Edward and Felicity.
What does she say about them?
She tells him Edward is real. You are not. Edward was born. You were made. Edward killed. Felicity, Edward was 5, and it shattered him. Edward is real, and you are his tumor. You didn't make Edward. Edward made Ed.
Wow, she's hitting him where it hurts.
He's breaking down his whole identity.
And how does you react?
He's clearly distressed.
I bet.
And the woman in the elevator with him freaks out.
Of course.
Alfred pushes past Angel and disappears into the crowd.
He gets away again.
Angel tries to follow him, but he's gone.
Oh, man. That's frustrating.
And then right outside the courthouse,
What happens?
Angel runs into Catherine Cathcart.
The crime reporter.
And it's implied that she helped Alfred escape.
Wow, so she is more than just a reporter.
Angel then gets into a car with Daryl
Okay.
and tells him to drive.
She's on the move.
She's not giving up.
So what happens next?
We hear news reports about Alfred's escape.
Okay.
And it turns out Catherine Cathcart helped him.
She's a felon now.
Yeah, she gets 6 years in prison.
That's a steep price to pay.
But Alfred's still out there.
No one knows where he is.
Then we see Angel and CB at Peter Baden's house.
Okay.
And they're discussing the escape with Nick and Peter.
What are they saying?
They talk about the possibility of Alfred having a plane.
So he could be anywhere.
And they think Catherine Cathcart might have thought she was going with him.
Oh, wow. So she was delusional.
Nick says Alfred's not going to win.
He's trying to be optimistic.
But Angel thinks Alfred always wins.
She's still haunted by him.
And then we get these excerpts from Catherine Cathcart's journal.
Oh, wow. What does she say?
She talks about helping Alfred escape
Okay.
because she loves him.
Oh, my God. She's fallen for him.
And she wants to control the narrative through her writing.
She's still trying to be a journalist.
And then there's this phone call between her and Alfred.
What do they say?
He asks, "Are you ready, kitten?"
Kitten.
She says, "Shall we publish?" And he replies, "We already have."
That's ominous. What does it mean?
It's left open-ended.
So we don't know what they're planning.
So that's the end of our deep dive into the Dollmaster.
Wow, that was a wild ride.
We saw Alfred's escape, Catherine Cathcart's betrayal.
And the lasting impact on the survivors.
What stood out to you, listener?
What did you think about Alfred's manipulation?
Yeah, the search for justice.
What did you take away from all of this?
For me, I'm left wondering,
What?
given how manipulative Alfred is
Right.
and how willingly Catherine helped him,
Yeah,
who's really in control now?
that's a good question.
And what will they do next?
Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.
And don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.